if we don't follow the chain of command. All right, and what can we do inside Premiere Pro?
ChatGPT.
Through the transcript and then... All right, so Fasha, you just asked me a pretty good question, and I think it's a good opportunity to discuss about it. I know this is not the Bully Business Review, but I'll wear the hat anyways. We're having a green table coffee side chat. This is a French press loaded with Starbucks Verona coffee. I have no affiliate with Starbucks at all. I just enjoy their coffee because, I don't know, whatever. Okay, anyway, surprisingly, actually, one of the funny things that happened was that our Osmo 3 podcast happened to do very well. I think maybe it's strategic for a product placement or something. Okay, so Fasha, you just had a pretty interesting question for me, so lay it on me. What was your question again? Lay it on me. What is your question again?
Right, the question is that why don't we, I guess it's more of a suggestion, why don't we use the existing videos that we have previously as a way to create shorts?
That's a very interesting question. So the question starts with long form content, right? And we could say something about how long form content could be repurposed to short form content. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So what was your suggestion to make that happen for us there, sir?
Right. So plan out the fact that we already have timestamps within our long form video.
Correct. Well,
right.
Actually, we don't have timestamps yet. Do you know how we get timestamps?
We cut them into pieces.
We do. Do you know how we can do that using ZPT?
Yes.
Zero production time? How do we do it?
We use Premiere Pro.
Right. And what can we do inside Premiere Pro?
ChatGPT.
Right. So we can download the transcript from Premiere Pro and then feed that into ChatGPT. And then ChatGPT should be able to come up with timestamps. Now, I'll save you the hard work because I've been doing that for months, or actually just a month. But it's very inaccurate right now.
Really?
Yeah. It's highly inaccurate because somehow it doesn't really coordinate the timestamps very well with the actual correct summarization. So it's a workflow that I'm trying to perfect through a sequence of better prompts. We have the transcripts, we have the timestamp for each phrase, each word spoken, but the problem is when we try to condense it, it doesn't come up with accurate chapter timestamps. But we should have it because as soon as we do, I think it will make, once again, long form content more digestible, and people are much more likely to actually get short form content consumed. I think that's a good idea because we often talk about this idea of, I think we're inventing this idea actually right now. I call it the content butcher.
We cut them up into pieces just like a huge cow.
Exactly, so you remember that. So the idea of content butcher is this. Nobody eats the entire cow because that's way too much in order for, let's say, a single serving. People eat a hamburger or a steak or, rendang.
Yeah.
So you need to have a content butcher to think about how to cut up the really long form content into short form. The magic behind this is that if you have long form, you can recut the content into many different ways depending upon a particular keyword or a theme or any of these other ideas. So that's pretty important, I think, because once you get, let's say, a mastery of content butchery, then you don't need to produce so much. You can just let's say, the AI specifically hunt out key themes through your transcript and then find those clips and then reassemble that. So that's a really good idea, Fasha. Yeah. Who should you talk to about that idea?
Well, the right person to talk about this is none other than our very own upper management.
Okay, good. So Fasha went and talked to me as a CEO, okay? Which is, it's a pretty good idea, but there is a problem here. And do you know what the problem is?
Is that there is someone in the middle that can actually execute that plan.
Yeah, so what we call is, this is a sensitive management topic. It can be a tricky one to master. We call that the chain of command, okay? So this was a concept that nobody explained to me and I frequently violated as a young professional because I didn't understand what this means. Do you understand what this means?
Actually, I do.
What does it mean?
It's where the command should follow. Say that I should give you the suggestion, but it should not be you the one that execute it. You should not give it to me directly.
Correct. It's actually this idea that we need to follow the chain of command for making sure that the correct communication is passed through the organization. So nobody knows that we had this conversation, just you and I, right? If we don't follow the chain of command. So Fasha is working in property management, which is part of the operation scope, but his suggestion with improving the content actually should begin at the very top levels, beginning with
The marketing team.
which is led by
Nadia. the upper management.
Nadia is the VP of
Oh,
marketing,
VP.
but this goes even higher up than marketing. This goes all the way up to,
Branding.
well, probably knowledge at this point. Because
So-
what you're talking about is a way of structuring the knowledge such that it is better structured. So if you think of a transcript, a video that's in long form as a long, let's say, piece of knowledge, what you're suggesting is a better way to organize it.
Right.
You're suggesting a way to cut up that knowledge using content butchery and repurpose it. Now, it has implications not just in, let's say, the marketing, but probably in this video itself, right? So what if this video had chapter timelines such that people could skip ahead and look at the part that's relevant to them? So this needs to be approached at the chief of knowledge level. So you should probably talk to,
Mas Gani.
yes, because he should appreciate that, yeah, that's a pretty good piece of advice, right? Because it could definitely have general implications across the company. The Bali Business Review is under whose management right now?
Oh, that would be our revenue manager.
Kind of. It's an actuator by Bella, but it's, let's say, aesthetically put together by...
Nadia?
Correct. So Nadia is our VP of marketing, and she is in charge of the looks and feel of it. And Bella's in charge of the, let's say, the performance of the BBR to entice owners to think more investment-minded instead of more aesthetic-minded about their approach towards Balinese investments. So what we're looking at right now is we need to respect the chain of command because this idea should be absorbed from a person who has global reach all the way down through the rest of the organization, okay? So this is super important. And what I'm giving you access to, Fasya, because you came up with the idea, is this. I'm giving you strategic insight credit, okay? So just as I said before in previous podcasts on my LinkedIn, I think strategic insight should and freely be able to be developed by anybody in the company about any topic. It's pretty good, you know, it's an open-minded company that accepts ideas from everywhere. But this is also hard to administer correctly because then we need to once again have
The chain of command.
correct. So if you have strategic insight and yet you are doing it yourself, is that a benefit or detriment to the company?
That is a judgment.
It is, believe it or not, is somewhat of a detriment because now what's happening is instead of focusing on what your supervisor has tasked you to do, you're focusing on doing something else, right? And then instead of actually, let's say, letting somebody else who's doing the work do the work, you're doing the work for them. So what that ultimately causes is more confusion.
Right.
So your supervisor cannot count on you to do operations because now you're doing a piece of content work for the CEO who enabled you to do something because you talked to them. And also the content team that's supposed to be doing it isn't doing the work because
Someone else is doing it.
somebody else is doing it and is not under their supervision. So now when you built something that is not under their, let's say, guidance or brand or anything, then they get frustrated because you are taking initiative, but it's discoordinated. And when I was a younger leader, I would appreciate that breakage because I said it's better to get started. But having been a more mature leader, I realized you don't want that much breakage because you sabotage your existing leadership structure too as well. So it brings us to the solution. You want to know what the solution
I'd
is.
love to.
The solution is actually from hopefully the Spotify video that you watched on your onboarding, and it's in the Spotify engineering culture, which we should put in a link underneath this video, that talks about this. It's called internal open source, okay? And let's see if you remember. Do you remember what internal open source means?
No, really don't.
Okay, so we need to illustrate what this means, right? So let's take an example here, right? Let's call this team A,